Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Religious Gamers. I'm Afa,
What's up, everybody? I'm Tater.
and we are back. Today we're going to be looking at or talking about our testimonies today, just kind of like our backgrounds, where we come from, who we are, you know, stuff that just kind of gives you like a general idea, or maybe a little bit more of a detailed idea of what has happened to us to lead us to the points that we are at right now in our life, especially with our faith. Um, just want to say before we get started, though, that I am really sorry for just kind of the absence that we've had so far. That's been more or less my fault, just because life has been getting crazy, and it was just really hard for me to get the last episode edited and actually published. Um, you know, that being said, to make it a little bit easier on the both of us, what we're going to start doing is we're going to have discussions every other week, and we're going to have streams in between. So by the
And
time
I
this
think,
episode comes out, oh, sorry, go ahead, man.
no, I was just going to say, I think too, the streams are going to be a little more laid back and just kind of open conversations.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah, we're gonna have a more laid back to it kind of theme too. You can definitely come ask your questions. Then, one of us will try and pause and just kind of answer it. If it's directed at one of us, or if it's directed at both of us, we'll both take turns or something. But we may do stuff like the last stream. The very first stream we had was us playing with Tater's son, and that was a lot of fun. He did do a lot to help us win some of those games.
the
uh,
kid's a natural. I mean,
oh yeah. He obviously did not get it from you though. But yeah. So that being said, we're gonna have discussions every other week, streams in between. Streams are gonna be a little bit more laid back, and that's just gonna kind of help us, edit those discussions to where they're nice and clean, and that they're a good product to be putting out. So without further ado, Mr. Trace slash Tater, let's switch it up. Let's talk about you first this time, my man.
oh man, where do we start? There's a lot to talk about with me.
So in 1992, I'm just kidding.
96. Come on, I'm not that old.
Oh dang, now you make me feel old.
Yeah, come on, Mr. 92.
Yeah, 31 already.
Oh, so I guess really we could just, if we're gonna do a testimony episode and just like where we are now, we just have to start from the beginning, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I know in the first episode, I'm just gonna start all over as if somebody hasn't heard the first episode or second episode. I was born and raised into a very loving, great family. Born into the Baptist church. My parents were very avid churchgoers. I forgot the expression, but where you were uh, a drug baby, where they drugged you to church on Sunday and Wednesday.
Oh.
And, growing up, it was just kind of like, oh, yeah, we're going to church again. And you don't really think about like all the information you're actually absorbing until later on. But I
Mm-hmm.
was I was going to church every Sunday and Wednesday from the time I was a kid till the time I was probably 18 or so. And it was all good. And, you just think, okay, I'm going to youth tonight to hang out with all my buddies that are going to be there and we're just going to have fun and all that. But either way, when I was I want to say I was 18. I moved out of my parents' house. I was rebelling. I wanted to, get away from my parents and do whatever I wanted to do and no curfew. And actually moved into a house with three other guys at the time. And it was not a good place to be. It was parties every other night and drinking and everything else you could think of. But ended up actually within the first year of being moved out of my parents' house, slipped really hard, fell into drinking and all kind of other stuff, and had my son when I was 19 with a girl I was dating at the time, and just went through a lot of hard times for a 19-year-old that grew up in church and had a great family. Like, all of this was just self-inflicted pain that you get when you try and rebel. And either way, it was not going to church, not doing nothing, just trying to, I guess, drink some of the pain away and everything else, and just fell into some really hard times and was partying all the time. Moved out of that house, moved into my own house. Then I was throwing my own parties and just backslid a lot. And then with everything else comes the depression and a lot of other things that I still struggle with, but I'm coping a lot better now. But I went through friends and girlfriends and just people like they didn't mean anything, and it was probably a reflection of how I felt for myself, because at that time I didn't feel anything for myself either. And so either way, fast forward a little bit, I ended up meeting my wife now, but me and her met a while before we started dating through a buddy of mine was dating her sister. And stuff happened, whatever. And then one day I made the joke over, oh, well, you need to go tell Amber. I said, what's up? Well, that's what he did. And so me and her started talking and Snapchatting. Either way, we started dating. And when we got married, we realized, like, hey, we really need to focus on putting Christ and God in the center of our relationship. Like, we need to build our marriage on that strong foundation. And so one of my friends was saying, well, we go to this church in Alabaster, it's really cool, you should come check it out. And I still had the, church of what I was thinking from when I was a teenager, like, oh yeah, we go, we sit down, whatever, no big deal. Well, when you actually open your heart and your ears to listen to what God is trying to tell you in church and in His Word, and just through everything, we fell in love with that church, and we started going every week, and we started trying to clean our mouth up and trying to clean our attitudes up and just do better. And then it just so happened, while we were going to that church, my parents ended up started looking for a new church, and so they started coming with us there and saw that we were all fired up, so they're all fired up and excited, I'm finally back on the right track, all that. So they had a small group that met every Thursday night that we would just they met for years before I ever wanted to come. And so they would meet up and have food and all hang out, and just at the end of the night they would get into a small Bible study of just 30, 45 minutes of just getting into the Word. Well, my dad kept saying, we just want to up our worship, we want worship to be better, we just want to up our worship. Well, I used to play drums when I was a kid, so I was like, well, man, if they had one guy that could play guitar, it's like, if he'll play guitar and you had a set of drums, I'd play drums for you. And he was fired up. He was like, we will go buy a set of drums today on the way home. And that's exactly what we did. On the way home, we went and bought a set of electric drums. It wasn't nothing fancy, but just the funny way that it all worked out. We bought the drums, and the guy that was playing guitar, man, we got together and practiced and got 2 or 3 songs nailed down, and we loved it. And then ended up, he had something going on 2 weeks after that, and he said, hey, I'm not going to be here next week. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just learn to play the guitar in a week, in a joking way. Well, then ended up finding a YouTube video talking about, oh yeah, you could play 4 chords in one strum pattern in play 10 different songs. So I was like, all right. So I did that, and now actually the way things have gone, he has left, and so now I am considered the worship leader for Thursday nights. And then when we were moving a few months ago, we kind of fell out of Sunday mornings with just the busy life of, moving and trying to get the new house set up and trying to build a fence for the dogs. And we moved on to a bunch of property. So we're trying to make sure that everything's set up, and we had to get water here and power and all that. So we kind of fell off on Sunday mornings, but my dad is actually a ordained pastor now. So I was like, okay, well, we could just walk down there and do a small little not Bible study, but a small little Sunday morning service. I could play a song on the guitar and sing. He could do just like a 15-minute message, then we could go back and do what we need to do. And now we have turned that into an actual Sunday morning service church at my house, to where we have about 10 or 15 people, and it's just turned into a good thing. But as far as I know, I explained all that and never even said the most important part. I actually got saved when I was a kid and got baptized as a kid and all that, and just, I rebelled and backslid and all that. But either way, I guess that was a very long story.
Yep,
But
all 9 minutes of it.
all 9 minutes.
No, man, that was a beautiful story. You got right to the point. I it got to the point where I'm like, I don't even need to make like little like noises that I'm still listening or anything, because this is just so good, and I don't want to ruin it. So I muted my mic and everything. I'm just like sitting there. I laughed when I laughed at a couple parts uh, about the drummer and everything. And
Yeah.
um,
Well, and it's funny too, because now like those drums are just sitting in our shed.
oh,
Like nobody. Well, actually, let me take that back. There's a little. I think she's 9. A girl that was coming. Her parents were coming to small group, and so she was coming with them. Well, for the longest time, she would fall asleep. Like every week, didn't matter. She would eat, and then she'd cuddle up with a blanket in her mom's lap and pass out, fall asleep. Well, my wife kept making the joke whenever I was playing drums, and then whenever I was playing guitar over, well, if you get me a tambourine, I'll play the tambourine up there with you. My wife is very shy. I don't want to say shy, but does not like to be the center of attention at all.
yeah, doesn't
So
want to
I
be up
kept
on
making the
stage.
joke over, no, you wouldn't. You wouldn't do it. And she's like, yeah, I would. I was like, I'm going to buy one. And when I do, you have to play it. So we went to Guitar Center to get something. I don't remember what. And I bought the tambourine and brought it home. Well, that night we had our small group, and it was sitting on the couch. And she was like, I'm not really going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Well, then Marley, the 9-year-old, she walked up and was like, can I play that tambourine? I was
Oh,
like, yeah. So she ended up getting up there and playing the tambourine. She's 9 years old, never played an instrument or anything before. And that girl has more rhythm in her pinky than I do in my whole body, and killed it on the tambourine. So now last week I ended up setting the drums up for her,
oh, there you
and
go.
I'm trying to teach her a little bit here and there, and she's loving it.
Oh, that's awesome, dude. That is really cool. Well, that was a really great story, man. Really, really appreciate everything you had to say. It was very, very genuine, and from the heart too. And man, it was just really nice to hear. Um, what specifically was it that prompted you and Amber to start, considering to coming back to Baptist church or start practicing more?
Um, well, like I said, I mean, being born and raised in the Baptist church,
Mm-hmm.
and she was the same way. She was between a Baptist church and I want to say a Methodist church, but either way, that was just our first option. And also our friends, they invited us, and that's what their church was that they were going to at the time.
Yeah.
So it just kind of all fell together to be that way, right? Just the way that it happened.
Okay. There wasn't anything though that like specifically happened that said, hey, maybe we should start just going back to church in general, or because you said
Oh,
it happened after y'all got married.
yeah, and when we first started dating was I was trying to start my own business doing lift kits and stuff like that, and the guy
Mm-hmm.
that I had helping me at the time, we were dumb and thought we had a lot of money after we worked all day and would end up going and drinking all night and wasting and blowing all of our money and either way. So when we started dating, we were both kind of out of it,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just, I guess you'd say, a realization of there wasn't really one certain thing that happened that just said, "Oh my gosh, we need to go back to church." But it was just like a realization of, okay, if we're going to be serious about this, this is how we were both brought up and raised, and this is something we truly believe, and we just need to put that in the center of our marriage so that, if you want it to work, what we believe, if we wanted it to work, we knew we needed to do it the right way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess there really wasn't just one certain thing that happened that just said, "Oh no, this happened, we're going back." It was just kind of
Okay.
a realization of something that we needed to do.
You kind of realize that. Um, Shoot, I had the thought in my head. It just seemed like you guys kind of realized that in order to make your marriage work and get the most out of it, you really needed to have a good foundation under it, and one of
Yep.
those things was the faith for you.
Yes.
Yeah. Um. Yeah, that's something that happened for me and my wife too a little bit. We we met online, and we there's this service called Catholic Match. Um, so we were looking for each other basically, and
Okay.
but when we first started talking, there's a whole lot of uncertainty and everything. We just
Yep.
decided, let's be friends for a little bit, and then see where that goes, and see if we like it. So that's basically
I'm
what we
gonna
did.
take a wild guess here and say y'all liked it.
Uh, you know, yeah, absolutely.
I
Um,
mean, I'm sure you like it a lot more now being husband and wife than just friends, but
well, there are some perks that come with that. First of all, I have somebody that does my laundry for me. That's pretty important.
hey.
um, yeah, she has, uh, that she could probably answer that question of what she has better than I could for sure. Um, so, what was the hardest thing to change whenever you started going back to church?
Um, Golly, it's one that I'm still fighting with to this day,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just pride more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
I think we talked about it in the first episode, but I was homeschooled, and
Yeah.
so, everybody has that weird stereotype of the weird homeschool kid and all that. So I worked
Yeah.
really hard. I don't want to say worked really hard. I tried really hard to always be like the cool guy, and I think that's what really fell into my party days is like,
Mm-hmm.
you throw a party at your house and you automatically have 150 friends and
Yep.
everybody thinks you're the cool guy and all that. So like I still struggle with pride a lot,
Yeah.
but the hardest, I guess, transition would have been, just not putting myself first and not thinking about, what would make me look cool or what's this person going to think if I do this. It's just really trying to listen to what God is telling me and what I'm supposed to do and
Yeah.
putting him first and my wife first before thinking about, oh man, somebody's gonna say something if I do this. I won't be the cool guy if I do this. You know what I
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean, man. All too well. Uh,
mean?
all too well. um, so yeah,
And I mean that even goes to leading worship now. That
yeah.
you think about like, oh yeah, that guy can play guitar. Or he'd be one of the cool. That'd be awesome to sit there and listen to him play guitar. But
Mm-hmm.
I've tried to humble myself enough to where I only learned worship songs. I do not know any country songs or any type of other genre other than worship right now because I don't want that to be about me, you know what I mean?
Oh, I gotcha. So your gift of um, music is something that you want to devote entirely to God. You don't want to
Yes.
play songs that like you personally enjoy. I get that. I get that, man. Um, that's I would even say that's a good thing. To have something that like, this is God's. Um, it's not for me. Uh, to just enjoy something that He blessed me with, and I want to give back to Him.
I was about to say, well, he was the one that gave it to me to start with, so I
Yeah.
might as well give it right back.
Mm-hmm. Um. Yeah, man. Dude, I'm sorry. This is what we're trying to do with this episode. For everyone who doesn't know, is that we're trying to do this more off the cuff, so it's more from the heart, more genuine. And I'm trying to think of questions here. I've had to take a couple breaks already just to try and get one of my children to go back to sleep, and so I'm sorry if anybody has heard him crying. But yeah, dude, that was.
Well, and
Go ahead.
in this pause of whatever,
Mm-hmm.
trying to think of something to say, I do want to say like I don't give my wife near enough credit because she is like the most supportive person I know in anything I do.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, the going back to church and the getting started and all that, totally 100% stood behind me and every bit of it and agreed and all that. And then like playing the drums, it was like we had started going to small group for like a few weeks before that, and then I texted her and was like, "Hey, so we're gonna start going to small group every week because me and Dad are buying drums on the way home, and now I'm playing drums in small group." And just 100% supportive. Now
That's hilarious.
she actually types up all the words for all of our songs. She types up the verses.
Oh wow,
That way they can all be put on the screen. She's just,
that's really
yeah,
cool.
just a moment of
See that?
appreciation for her.
See, call me old fashioned, but I think that's exactly what a wife should do: is be very supportive of the husband.
Yeah.
I see. I know things are different in today's day and age, and I don't have a problem with couples that want to switch things up or whatever. Where if the wife has a better career than the husband, um, that's really up to them, and I don't really have a problem with it. But I think that we were born with certain roles here, and they're not entirely made up by society. Some of them are made up by our nature, and so I really think that women are supposed to be the ones that stay at home, manage the house, take care of the children and stuff like that, and the man's supposed to go out and provide for his family.
Yeah.
Um, Now, that being said, if you work a desk job, um, you're not actually like going out hunting, putting like all of the food and everything and stuff on the table. You should at least know how to operate the dishwasher and the washing machine and help your wife out around the house. Like if you, um, So that's kind of a little bit of like what I think, what I believe, because women are naturally just more nurturing, and they have a lot of natural things that they're born with that just makes them better for taking care of the children at home. And men have things that they're naturally born with that makes them better for going out, getting the food, hunting it down, whatever. um but again, times
That
have changed a little bit, so like it's up to the couple. But it's just kind of like,
yeah.
I think, back to the original point, we kind of got off on a little tangent there. Back
We
to
do
the
that a lot.
Yeah, we do. Back to the original point, though. That's awesome of Amber that she's accepted that she's embraced that. I think that that's something that's very special. Because I don't think that there's a whole lot of women who are willing to do that in this day and age, and
Yeah.
that's just really special, man.
So I just figured in that moment of awkwardness, we could throw out an appreciation post.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Appreciation post or a shout out. And
So now you better do it too, or you'll get in trouble.
oh well, she, honestly, um, my wife has helped me through so many things, and she's been so supportive in so many ways. Like, we'll go over some of that stuff here, I guess, in a little bit. Um, that's just, that has its time in a little bit here. Excuse me. Excuse me. Got a little bit of a
You okay?
smoker's cough after failing to smoke my pipe earlier today. um, but yeah, like, trying to think of more questions for you. Just cause, like, I want to devote as much time as we can to you. Um, but because you have come a long way. And I remember before you got married to Amber, you were always really fun to hang out with, and we had a lot of fun together. But I never ever had a problem with you. It's just that I can see the difference, because I did get to
What?
know you before you got married, and before you and Amber decided to devote so much time to the Lord. And there's a difference, and it's really cool to just kind of see that happen
And
in somebody's life.
it's cool too to me, like, we didn't know it back then, but
Mm-hmm.
God's timing is, impeccable. So me and you meeting,
To say the least.
what, 4 or 5 years ago, probably?
Golly,
Just,
has it been that long?
how long have you and your wife been married?
We have been married. We just celebrated our second anniversary.
Okay, so
Um,
maybe 3 years ago, because we
yeah,
had we
I
had
think that's
became good
closer.
enough friends that me and Amber were gonna come to y'all's wedding.
Yeah, then y'all wimped out.
Um, yeah, it was a day that day.
No, it's all good,
But
dude. I totally get it. Um,
like back then, me and you were both just, and I'm not trying to get too much on you, but I know I had a foul mouth. I said what
oh,
I
jeez.
wanted. I said what I thought. You know, just whatever. So we never talked about faith. We never talked about
We didn't.
any of that.
It's really only been like the last few months that we started
Yeah.
talking about it a little bit more together.
And
Um,
then somehow I think we kind of fell off not talking for a long time, and then
we did.
we got back on,
That's just
and it was just
yeah,
like we never
yeah,
never missed a beat.
exactly. um, yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry for that, but I
No,
was
you're
gonna
fine.
say, that's just me sometimes, man. Like, sometimes I gotta step back and refocus and just kind of like concentrate on taking care of the bare minimum, because I'm very like uh antisocial. Okay, like I'm outgoing as all get out, and I love like being with people, but it gets to build up to a point, and I just can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I'm very not antisocial because that means I hate society and I don't, but introverted, very very introverted, and it's caused me to also be a little socially awkward around people these days because like especially at work like maybe it's just the thing but like at the Christmas party that work had I was just like kind of standing around looking at a wall. Everybody else was talking. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
this is totally awkward.
And I'm the same way too. Like me and my wife always make the joke after we've been around a lot of people for a while,
Mm-hmm.
we got to go recharge our batteries.
Yep.
So she loves reading. I love playing my
Oh,
video
dude.
games. So like we can we can be extroverts for like a few hours,
Yeah.
and then we both get on the way home, and it's like, all right, I got to go. When we get home, I got to recharge my batteries.
Yep.
And I'll come in here,
I
I'll
get it.
play my game, she'll go in there, she'll read, and we just
We gotta all four of us meet together at some point
yeah,
soon
we
here,
do.
man. Because like it sounds like Amber is somebody I'd be really cool with because I love to
Yeah.
read, and obviously I know that you and I are cool with. So,
Yeah, that's what you think.
well, you haven't run away yet.
Not yet, but it may be coming.
I know I've pissed you off, but um, yeah, um, yeah, it's been really cool getting to know you, man. I gotta say, and it's been evident the change that has happened in your life.
Well, I appreciate it, man.
No problem.
And just so you don't feel like you missed much, the change probably happened, I want to say about a year ago was when we started going back to church and everything, and it was a very slow and painful change, but
Oh, it's all good. Um, it's going to be. Um,
and don't let me fool you. There's still I am not a perfect person by any means. I just
Nobody is.
strive to be better every day.
That's all you can do, man. That's all you can do. Um, yeah, I think I'm pretty much out of questions at this point.
All right, well then I guess that's enough about me. Let's hear about you.
All right. Um, so yeah, so you gotta figure out how to begin with these things, dude. And
Yeah,
I know you just went through it, and you started at the beginning, and man, I think that's probably where I'm gonna start too. I had a thought a minute ago, but yeah, I forgot what it was, so must not have been important.
it'll
um,
come back to you.
yeah, it'll come back to me after we're done talking and everything, like it always does. Oh, that's what I wanted to do. But yeah, so my life has been an interesting roller coaster for golly most of it. Had a really good childhood, um, and my mom always kept us close to the church, always kept us close to the faith. We were cradle Catholics, like I said earlier in our prequel episode. And she always did her best to, just enrich our lives, make our lives um, enjoyable. So, but really, I guess the point where things really started happening for me was about when I was 12. Um, was in Boy Scouts, friends with this one kid, and I was telling him about a time when I was 9 where I stumbled across some nudie pictures on the internet, and he and I just like started talking about it, and a couple nights later, I started looking at pornography, and was pretty much hooked on it ever since. And it's not like I hated God. I just didn't see anything wrong with it. Like, you know, parents told me it was something I shouldn't do or whatever, and I didn't quite understand them being, a young kid and, in the midst of one of the most turbulent times of somebody's life. Um, puberty hitting and everything. I don't understand how people are always like, "Oh, I wish I could go back to high school." I do not. um, but yeah, man, like that's really kind of when the when Satan really just started trying to pull me away, was with those first few images. And golly, my life after that was just so lonely. And I just felt like I wasn't good enough. I was just fat and ugly and not very smart, and I'd never be good at anything, and so why try? Um, and it kind of changed a little bit. One Boy Scout trip, we went to a monastery in the area, and that's when I first found out, hey, porn is not a good thing. And it kind of scared me. I tried to get away from it, managed to do it for about a year and a half and get into video games in that time. But then Hurricane Katrina hit, and I started falling again. We moved to a different part of the country, and it was there that I really started to encounter some pretty bad stuff spiritually. I don't want to go into too much detail because I don't want to scare anybody or make anybody think that I'm crazy, but we were living in a house that really was not good for us. And there's a few nights that I just woke up in a cold sweat, just terrified. Hadn't had a nightmare or anything, but I just was scared of the dark in this house, and I was scared of everything. And it was really traumatic. But we moved away. Things got a little bit better. Then we moved right back to that same house because we had like a love-hate relationship with it. Like, it was a perfect house, had a nice tree house and everything in the backyard. But there was just, there's just something about it. And yeah, it just wasn't good when we moved back, at least for me. The whole time we were there, my whole family was just depressed. Like, all of us were. We were just kind of lethargic in our faith. It didn't help that, like, the friends that I had there, most of my friends that were Catholic like me, love them to death. They have good hearts. They're good people. They just don't understand the Catholic faith as much. And a lot of them have fallen away from it since. But they, I went to youth group there, and they just, their influence really just kind of helped me just like not really care so much about Catholicism. I was still much like, oh, well, God exists, and I want to try and do my best for him, but there's no point to really like going to church every Sunday or anything like that. And I think one of the most painful things, because one of the most painful things that I still feel today, was my best friend in the whole world I got during this time. And just because of the porn, of the depression that my whole family was under, and everything that was going on, it just, I didn't treat him or any of my other friends like they were people. And it's not like I was bored with them or I was trying to be selfish and not care about them in any way. It's just that like I just didn't think about it. And uh, thankfully, Dad had to, uh, different job offer in another part of the country. We moved away from there, and that's really when things started to turn around. Um, Still had to go through things. Still had a lot of stuff happen. Um, you know, I fought with pornography basically ever since I was 12. Um, and so I had to do a lot of fighting in North Dakota is where we moved to, and um, I met a better group of friends that cared a little bit more about the Catholic faith. Um, like they're humans and they always make mistakes, but and so just on like a personal level, I hurt them, they hurt me a couple times, and um, but ultimately, like, I started to pay a little bit more attention to my Catholic faith. I started to really try to better my life, try to dig myself out of the pit that I was just in. And, I put myself there in that pit. I gotta say, I put myself there with everything that I did, with, wanting to try to be cool to all my friends, that same whole pride issue. It's kind of funny, like, you're so proud of yourself, but like, you don't think anything of yourself. I feel like a lot of people are in that kind of mindset these days where they're like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I can do that better than them. But, they don't really think that they're a good person or that their life is worth living. And so it's just kind of
Well, and
interesting what, sorry.
I think I think a big problem with it too is just more wanting to put other people down to
Yeah,
lift yourself up. You know what I mean?
exactly.
I'm
Yep.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, dude, it's all good. That's exactly it. We just kind of, but that's why we have that pride, is because like we want to try and make ourselves feel good, and we don't really believe or have the confidence in ourselves to say, you know what, I am a good person, and to prove it, I'm going to, or not, we don't even have to prove it. Like we don't say to ourselves, I am a good person, and I'm going to prove it by doing this. That
Yeah,
kind of got getting off into a rant here now, but
I'm sorry. You go ahead.
no, it's all good, dude. Yeah, so where was I? We were in North Dakota. So yeah, it just started like coming back to the faith a little bit more. The biggest defining moment that really brought me back into it was my mom made me go to what's called a search retreat. It's specifically Catholic, but it's called it's an acronym. I can't quite remember what it is. It's like Search for Christian Maturity or something. But the SEARCH actually stands for something. I just can't remember what it is. But it was a weekend retreat, where you go, you meet people that you don't know, and you um, hopefully get something out of it. And golly, the Tom and Colleen were the two people that put it on, and they just did such an awesome job. Um, they knew how to cultivate, I guess, or choose the right people to run it and everything. And they just were, Tom and Colleen were like some of the best people I've ever met in my entire life. And I love them and I miss them so much. Um, but once I went to one search retreat, I was hooked. I was like, I want to do that again. And that's really when my journey back to the faith started. Um, that's really, I still didn't want to quite learn as much about the faith because, um, this is where we're going to introduce yet another theme into this, is that I didn't want to learn about the faith because I was scared that I was called to be a priest. So like my whole teenage life, I just was like, I want to be married, but I'm scared that I'm called to be a priest. I feel like I'm called to be a priest, blah blah blah, and priests can't get married. I just was, it was something that terrified me, and it really was at a point where it was just kind of like taking me further and further away from God. Um, but after this search retreat, I started just to pray and try to be open more and say, okay, God, you've called me to this. You have impacted me so much. Um, I'll try and be open to be a priest. Help me to open my heart to it and to see if that's what you want me to do. And so, so like I just started like opening myself up to that possibility again. And I started just kind of feeling myself grow closer to God and feeling like, a wall, one of the many walls that I had built up has just like started crumbling. And, porn was like the very last wall I had to get over. But, I just started growing again. Wanted to go to daily mass, started doing that, started going to adoration. That was another amazing thing that happened. Adoration, for people that don't know, is where the Eucharist from, mass is put on display sort of on the altar, because we believe that is Christ, and we go there to adore him and just kind of sit there in silence. And it's such a profound time. It's just such a beautiful moment. I got a lot of cool stories about going to adoration. I'll tell one real quick. There was one night I tried to pick like the hardest hours to go to adoration to just kind of like make it more of a sacrifice. I could never do it for too long, but there was one night I had the 4 a.m. hour from 4 to 5, and that was tough. But I went, and I was just so cold. It was a cold night. I was just so cold. And I got into the adoration chapel. I got in front of our Lord, and there was just this beautiful warmth emanating from the Eucharist. And it was just so peaceful and wonderful. And I've never felt more at peace in my life than in front of the Eucharist at Eucharistic adoration, man. So, after I started growing back closer to my faith, I was in university, and then I was starting to get, my confidence back, starting to build it up, starting to, put porn away for good, starting to just like make good strides in my life. And then two things happened. One of the things that I was not doing better at was my grades. Well, actually, I was starting to get better at the end. So I actually pretty much lost all. My grades were so low, I didn't have any financial assistance, whatever it's called from universities. I think it's financial aid. Yeah.
Financial aid, yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't get financial aid anymore. My grades were so terrible. So I had to like pay for semesters out of pocket. And that meant that I could only do one semester every other year. I did that I think I did that twice. And then the second thing that happened was I fell and broke my ankle at a summer camp that I was on staff for. Didn't just break it, shattered it. And these two things combined really just destroyed whatever confidence I had built up. And, stopped praying, stopped going to adoration, just kind of fell back into that pit of porn and depression, and had to move back in with my family. You know, that was really humiliating for me. I love my family to death, I really do, but it's hard whenever you've been self-sufficient, whenever you've been, you know, coming close to, if not actually taking care of yourself, and then all of a sudden you can't do it. um, they had to make me food and bring it to me. I couldn't leave a chair for days. I had to sit in that chair for weeks and months, and it was tough. Um, but then, I started walking again. Um, I had some good opportunities. I started going back to college, and I actually had good grades, and I was actually able to get financial aid, and um, good things were happening. I was living in a different state at this time because my family had moved from North Dakota. Um, but good things started happening, and one by one, I just started like growing back closer to Catholicism, to God. Um, Still didn't want to learn much about the Catholic faith. Um, I did skip over one of the big moments in my life, but I'll tell it here in a minute, I guess. Um, but I decided, we'll say, I just decided that I come to the realization that God wasn't calling me to be a priest, that He was actually calling me to be married, and so I started looking on Catholic Match, because most of the people that I could actually meet in the city were not Catholic, and I wasn't really all that interested in them to begin with. So,
Yeah.
Went on Catholic Match, and I met Catherine, my wife, and man, it's been such a tremendous roller coaster ever since then, because we had to have a long distance relationship, and so you're prone to fight a little bit more. You're gonna miss
Yeah.
each other a lot more, and that's why you fight a little bit more. And it was so rough whenever we weren't seeing each other, but I tell you, it was blissful whenever um
When you finally get to come together.
when you finally had little trips here and there. I had so much fun with her, and I could make her laugh. That was awesome. um, she was, you know, she was just really great. She was everything I ever wanted in a wife and a mom. Um, just, just fantastic. Yeah, wouldn't trade, even though it was long distance. I wouldn't trade the lessons that we had to learn and go through. Wouldn't trade all the good times that we had because of those lessons for the world. Um, I'm happy things happen the way they did. Otherwise, I wouldn't have a wife and two sons. Um, and what really kicked it off, though, for not really kicked it off because I was searched, but lately, because of the confidence that I've had, I've been able to dig my way out of that pit. I've been, not looking at porn. I'm going on, strong here now, and um, I'm not depressed anymore. I don't feel lonely. Um, I feel in many ways like I've come home, and you know, it's just been such a great experience since then. I've even started to venture out and learn more of the church. I just finished my first history of the Catholic Church. I'm very, very happy about that. Very excited. Um, I, it all kind of sparked off last year whenever I was, um, I had some downtime to kill because my job requires that I drive here and there. So I'm like, well, I kind of want to find like a podcast because I don't like listening to the news on the radio, and I don't want to listen to these new songs. I'm not a big fan of them. They just sound like the same song played over and over to me. Um, Not trying to knock anybody. If you like that stuff, that's fine. Just to me, they all sound the same. Um, so I started looking for like podcasts and stuff, and one of them had been suggested by my brother, and I had heard of it or heard of Matt Fradd um, from my college days when I was going to search and stuff, and um, it's called Pints with Aquinas with Matt Fradd. I started listening to that, and it was awesome. His Australian accent had me enamored from the very beginning. It was just fantastic. Um, and so that's what kind of like prompted me to start like learning more about my faith. And the more I've learned, the more like I've just been like, man, this is the greatest thing in the whole world. Why did I never want to learn about this? Because we have people like G.K. Chesterton, J.R.R. Tolkien. Uh, we have these Goliaths of literary artists and theologians, and we just have such a rich history. And it's just like I'm not trying to sound elitist. I guess maybe I am, but like I just that's what I love so much is that like um the same faith that inspired the Lord of the Rings is my faith. And it's just cool to me. I love to read books, and um yeah, yeah, I love to read books, and so like Chesterton and Tolkien are like my heroes. I love them so much. Um, that's pretty much it.
Well, that's awesome, man. First, I want to say I'm proud of you for coming out of the slump. I know addictions in any form can be really hard.
Yeah.
So that's a major thing, dude, and that's something that needs to be congratulated and proud of. So,
Well, thanks, man. I
and
appreciate it. It's been a long and hard road. And you know what really finally did it for me? Um, I just kind of came to the understanding that you know, I wanted to look at porn. Like I had like this immature desire for it. And I just kind of realized, I don't want that anymore. And I'm it's not like because I had actually kicked the addiction back in college, and so it kind of was more like a habit for me, I guess. But I was just
yeah,
like, I don't want this habit to continue anymore. This is hurting too many people that I love, and you know that's one of the things I really wanted to thank my wife for is because she's helped me climb out of that pit of depression and porn. She's been there for me um, in all the ways that I needed, and so I told you I'd give her a shout out and a thank you,
yeah,
and so that there it is. Um, she deserves much more than that, um, but she's my rock. I love her so much, and it's because of her that I've wanted to stop looking at porn.
that's awesome, man. I also wanted to say too, because it hit me when you said something a minute ago about when you finally got back in it, it just felt like you were home.
Yeah,
That hit me because I felt the same way.
yeah,
You don't realize when you're just out doing what you want and just
mm-hmm.
thinking about me and all this. You don't think about all the good that you had.
Yeah,
But then, man, when you get back in it and you fully open up your heart to be able to listen to what God's trying to tell you and just do what's actually best for you,
Yeah.
it's just that warm, fuzzy feeling of, yeah, you nailed it on the head with the just home.
Yeah, man. Um, it's like it is. It's just like coming home, and I think there's more to that. Like that's coming home. Sorry, I have thoughts, and I'm trying to like
Yeah.
articulate them, but there's so many emotions now that I'm also feeling because for better or worse, I just basically told my whole life story, and
Yeah.
um, dude, my computer's trying to go to sleep. Um, but yeah, so I think there's a reason that it feels like coming home. And I think it's because we're not made for this world. We're not made for the things of this world.
Yep.
We're made for God and for the things that are of God. And his love is so much deeper than even that of a sexual love between a man and a woman. It is so much deeper for us and is so just pure and beautiful. And it's just, yeah, I think there's more than just, I think there's a reason why it feels like we've come home whenever we just truly decide to put our faith in God and actually accept him into our hearts.
And also just the weight that gets lifted.
Oh,
Like you
dude.
feel like you can finally breathe again. Like
Oh, man. Oh,
I
dude.
I, I don't know
Yeah.
about you, but I struggle with I mean, I talked about it earlier, but with depression, but also
Mm-hmm.
just major anxiety. Like,
Mm-hmm.
one little tiny thing could be said about anything, and my mind will be racing about everything.
Yeah.
And it fully and totally consumes me, and it's all I can think about. And I'm like, anybody could be talking to me about anything, and it's like, I can't focus or even hear what they're trying to tell me because that's just, it has fully consumed me. But,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I've got to the point now where if I get to that, I can just relax for a second, breathe, and just go into prayer over, God, I fully give this to you. You
Yeah.
know what I need. You know how to handle this. You know everything that's best for me. And it's the same feeling for me of just like, I can finally breathe again. I can think clearly. I can, focus on what somebody's trying to tell me. And it's just like that weight just like falls off.
Yeah. It's it's a beautiful moment, man. That's totally like an understatement for everything that really happens, like what I
Yeah.
just said. But like, and especially after you so eloquently put it, there's a weight that falls off, and I remember that, dude. I remember that twice. That has happened to me. That happened at my first search. There's a moment where you can't really talk about it, but I guess it's not that much of a secret. Um, it's called prayer backup, and so basically, um, while you're at the search retreat, there's a group of people who have been to a search retreat before that have willingly isolated themselves from all the joy and all of the fun that's going on at the retreat. And they're off. And for where I went to, they could still hear all the laughter and all of the, excuse me, all the stuff that was going on. And they're just praying for you the whole weekend.
Yeah.
And for my first retreat, whenever prayer backup was revealed, it was just, it knocked me to the floor as much as another secret, which is, you get letters from your family. But I figured that's
Yeah.
less of a secret because almost every retreat has that. um, but like it knocked me to the floor just as much as the letters from my family, because it was so profound that these people sacrificed their weekend to pray for me. Um, and I knew that like I just wanted to always be on prayer backup for every church I went to, because
Yeah.
I went to multiple, and I was prayer backup twice for all like 4 or 5 that I went to after my first one,
That's
and
awesome.
everyone was just awesome. Every single one was just awesome. And doing prayer backup was a great time because like you could hear all those people and you had nothing but joy. Like you didn't have any sadness that you weren't a part of it. I mean, a little bit. Some people did. For me, I didn't. I just was just so happy that they were happy, and I just like was praying for them. And we like made all sorts of different sacrifices. Like one was no talking the whole weekend. You had to stay silent
Oh, wow.
except for in the quote unquote break room. So we had like, you know, the room for the girls to sleep in, the room for the guys to sleep in, the little room that we would pray in, and then we had like a little snack room where we could go have snacks and stuff. And so you could only talk in that room. And it was such a cool experience. I loved it. Um, we scared like so like for meals and stuff, somebody has to come and lead you to another room where you can kind of still hear the dinner going on, but like nobody can see you. And we scared the person that came to get our prayer backup group because we all we were all because we wore we chose to wear the ceremonial, white robes of the retreat. And so we chose to wear those the whole weekend. That was one of the other sacrifices. And so we had the hoods up. And so the first meal, the
Oh,
assistant
no.
director came to come get us. She walks in, opens the door, and all she sees is these 5 people wearing these white robes with
White
the hoods pulled
robes.
down. It was hilarious. she she says, "Oh," it just cuts off at the F and just drops whatever she had in her hand and starts running away. She came back like, "Y'all scared me."
You got me.
That's exactly what she said. That was the only thing she could say was, "You got me." Oh my gosh, it was so great. It was so funny. Um, but then like the going back to the point because we got off on that tangent. Um, the other time that I felt that weight drop off of me was at a at I think it was either my last or my second to last search retreat. I think it was my last. Um, I'm there, and like some of the very last talks of the retreat are usually given by a priest and a nun, and they're talking about their vocations. And like a married couple stands up and everything and talks about their vocations, and the priest and the nun stand up and they do their talk, and at the end of the talk the priest says, "Okay, now if you feel like you have a call to holy orders, which is nun, priest, brother, hermit, stuff like that, please stand up." And everybody starts standing up, and I don't, and I'm like, "Dude, what are you doing?" I'm thinking to myself, like, just berating myself. "What are you doing? Stand up. Why aren't you standing up? You feel this. Why? Stop it. Stand up. This is
Yeah.
here." And then like this peace comes over me, and this weight drops, and I realize I'm not standing up because I don't feel a call to the priesthood. And at that moment, that weight that you were talking about dropped for the second time in my life, and I just felt peace and just joy. and I look up and I'm smiling at all of my friends that have stood up, and I'm like, that's so great for you guys. I'm so happy you
Yeah.
feel that. And I'm just like, this joy that I know a little bit more now about now because I have a wife and two sons. But this joy just like filled me, and it was just an awesome moment.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, and like it's it's funny how we fight with ourselves like that.
Yeah.
Like whether you're convicted on something or you're confused about something or whatever it may be, where
Mm-hmm.
I am really bad about it. Like anything I do, I fight with myself about it.
Yep.
Like in my head, I'm like, you should do it. No, don't do it. Oh, yeah, you should do it. No, don't do it. Just, and I don't know if that falls back on the pride category of what somebody's going to think about you or
No.
what, but man, I fight with that all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on like what you're fighting about, but I would say no. I think that's more of um more of just kind of like our original human nature and our fallen nature after the fall of man clashing with each other. Cuz
Yeah.
we have all these good intentions that we want to do this thing, and then we have these little lies that come in and say, oh, you shouldn't do that. It's not safe, or, it may not be a good idea, or vice versa. You have our fallen nature that says, hey, you should do this thing. And you have like the true human nature saying, no, that's a bad thing to do. Don't do that. And I think it just depends. You were talking about your pride earlier, and one of the things I wanted to talk about was like, your pride's pretty prevalent. You're not the only one that struggles with it for sure. Um, it can be so hard to deal with. And one of the things that happened to me in my life is that I um, I love um, the Novus Ordo Mass. I have always loved the Novus Ordo Mass, but when I found out that it wasn't very traditional, I was like, man, well, now I just want to be traditional. I want to, even though I love this thing, I want to humble myself and then just go to do the traditional thing. And I realized that's really not all that humble. That's just like pride saying you have to do this thing so you're kind of cool to Catholics or other Catholics and stuff like that. And it I forget who said it, but somebody said like the more humble you become, the harder humility becomes.
Wow.
And that's really true. The more
Yeah.
you grow in humility, the harder humility becomes because you start being like, oh, well, I'm so humble.
Yeah.
And so, like, it kind of becomes reversed where sometimes the humble thing to do is to, you know, uh, draw attention to yourself or something like that. And, um, yeah, there's Matt Frad. I think he's the one that said it actually. I should credit him because he's probably the one that said it. But Matt Frad, he was talking about how he's a convert to the Catholic faith, and he loves the traditional Latin Mass. That's where he likes to go. And he says, but you know what? To try and grow in humility, I go to a mass that I know I'm not going to enjoy, and I try to do that so that I don't have a big head on my shoulders. Like, oh, I always go to traditional Latin Mass. It's the only time you can feel God.
Yeah.
So,
Well, one more thing I had a question about just
oh yeah,
because this
go
was
for it.
just a random. You piqued my curiosity. I have to know about this house. You can't just
Okay,
leave it hanging like
all
that.
right. So this house, Um, I all right. So this house, it was in Kentucky. Okay, I'm not gonna say
Okay.
what city. Not gonna say exactly where. Um, but this house is probably the scariest time of my life, and I'm not sure if it's because it was haunted by a spirit that was in purgatory, a human spirit that was in purgatory, a human spirit that was, um, in hell, or what, or if it was actually had a demon attached to it. But um, it was very terrifying. My brother would see one of my brothers would see a woman walking, and honestly, I would feel just like this cold malice on the second story of this house where my bedroom was. And like I could not be up there without the lights on. I had to have the lights on. And I mean like full blast and everything. And this is from the very first night that I ever slept up there. So from the get go, like I'm not sure why I was so scared. I wasn't sure at the time why I was so scared of it. But looking back, there was something not right. And we never had it, I never had a priest over to exercise it, only to bless it. Um, and that did kind of help after he blessed it. Um, but yeah, it was just a terrifying place to live in. And I hated going up to the second story. Every time I had to go up there, I just felt like somebody was watching me and hated me and wanted me to leave or wanted to harm me. And so after a couple months, I couldn't take it anymore. I said, okay, I don't want that room up there. I want to be down on the first floor with everybody, or down in the basement. Well, I couldn't be down in the basement because it was cold, and it was just too cold. It wasn't. It was just, we didn't do anything with the basement, like, so there was like no furniture or anything down there, but yeah. So the house, just in general, it just depressed all of us too. Like there was just kind of a sickness, um, or not sickness, but just kind of like a thick air of depression all over it. Um, yeah. So I never was sure about it, but recently, not all that recently, but like a year ago, I had a really bad nightmare about that house with the very first house that I purchased. And come to find out, something was attached to that house.
Oh
So
no.
yeah, so I've lived through some experiences here, and I didn't want to bring it up because I don't want people to think I'm crazy or anything like that. But I have been through some things. I can say that there are some very bad entities out there that do not have your best your best wishes at heart.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you now, I wish I wouldn't have asked because I am terrified of you can make fun of me if you have to.
No, there's nothing.
I am 27 years old and still terrified of the dark.
Oh,
I
dude,
am
it's all good.
I
I
am scared of like, you say that feeling of somebody's watching you. I'm sitting here looking over my shoulder
oh
and had to
jeez.
close my curtains and
Well, I'll tell you what, the quickest way, especially since you have a new house, the quickest way to get that to go away is to have your house blessed by a Catholic priest.
and see, I'm just saying I didn't feel like that until you tell me scary ghost stories. So I'm
Well,
blaming you.
well, I'm telling you how to fix it. No, honestly, dude, say a quick blessing over your house. You own it, so you have authority to do that, and say a quick blessing over your house. Even if you, sorry, if you were Catholic, you have that authority. But um, you have a different belief system, so you have a different set of rules regarding that. But like, say a quick blessing and over the house, and then just give it to God and be like, God, I just ask for your protection. I trust you. Put your faith in Him, and then if it helps, watch something funny. That's usually
Oh,
what helps
that's
me. Like I'd
yeah.
put on like a lighthearted show or um, something like that, and it helps.
That's
So,
what my wife makes fun of me because she is anything and everything horror. She loves it.
oh
Old
really?
scary
Oh, that's
movies,
so funny.
like loves it. And
Oh my
so
gosh.
I try and suck it up and I'll try and watch a scary movie with her. And at the end of it, I'm like, all right, now we have to watch something funny and we're sleeping with the lights on. Like, that's just what's happening now.
Well, you know, I don't blame you. I honestly, I was like that for the longest time. Like, and only recently have I started to just kind of like truly embrace some aspects of the horror culture. Like, found this out. I love reading H.P. Lovecraft. Oh my gosh, dude was awesome. So I like reading some horror. I've started reading. Um, I've started. I haven't read it in a couple months. I need to get back up to it. But the fairy tales, um, Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tales. Have you heard of those?
Not very hip on books.
Okay,
So
so those are considered horror, and I'm using my fingers to do the quotation marks, but I forget
the
nobody
air
can see me.
quotes.
Yeah, the air quotes. Just picture air quotes here. um, they're considered horror, but really, what it actually is, it's just um stories that have some disturbing thing content in them, but it's to help children become accustomed to that. And studies have shown that if you read the fairy tales to your children, yeah, as you judge them old enough to understand them or whatever, some of them are more gruesome than others. But if you read them to your children, they do become more better equipped to deal with certain things. Like there's one that I cannot wait to get to myself. I'm gonna mention Matt Fradd again here. I'm gonna have a link to his channel so anybody can watch or go to him and watch him because he's hilarious. And I would suggest anybody, it doesn't matter if you're Catholic or not, go to the channel, give him a listen. He's fantastic. Um, he doesn't always talk about like strictly Catholic things. Sometimes he talks about the fairy tales, but so I'm gonna have a link to him. He hit one of his favorite stories from the fairy tales is one where this girl in this village, um, and her father, they live in this village. And one day the father's like, okay, we're really poor. I need to, give you away in marriage now so that I can have some money to live. And so he betroths her to this really rich but like super creepy guy that she does not want anything to do with. He doesn't know anything. Um, but they her and the guy she's betrothed to get talking. He invites her out to his hut, and she goes one day, but she goes at a time when he's not there, and she gets into his house or whatever, and she meets this old lady, and this old lady says that this is where they bring people back to kill them and eat them, and the old lady hides her in a barrel or something whenever the guys come back, because it's more than just the one guy. It's like a
Yeah.
couple of them. And the old lady helps her. um, and these men have brought back another young girl. And they, uh, content warning here, trigger warning, whatever. They cut her up and they consume her. But one of her fingers with a ring on it falls down on the floor and rolls over to the girl that's hiding in a barrel. And after they leave, she grabs that finger and escapes. And then the next day, whenever she's supposed to get married to the guy, she brings forth all these accusations because the village has noticed that the other young girl is missing. So she brings forth all these accusations against him, and he denies them all. The whole village is on his side at this point. They believe him, but then she shows the finger with the ring, and then they find out that, or then the whole village is like convinced that he, killed her and stuff, and so they kill him, I think.
Oh
um,
wow.
yeah, so it ends happily. Kind of,
Okay.
sort of, not quite for everyone. The girl does, there's a girl that dies, and it's kind of graphic. It's like, that's why it's like Matt Fradd's favorites, because it's so like
Yeah.
graphic. But the reason it's there, the reason why it was written, is to tell children that there are people out there, there are things out there that do want to kill them, that do want to, harm them. And it helps them to deal with that. It helps them to be like, okay, not everyone has, my best interest at heart. And kids grow up, better able to handle grief, sadness, strife, and it's just really interesting. Like, I can't wait to
Yeah.
start reading the fairy tales to my boys. So,
Well, I'll tell you what doesn't help, and that's making your kid watch a horror movie when he's
yeah,
like 6 or 7 and thinking
yeah,
it's funny, because that's what my dad did, and it was not funny because I had to sleep with my mom that night.
yeah. Let's see, what was it for me? Because I did not like horror for the longest time. Like I said, it's something I'm just now becoming, uh, acquainted with and coming to terms with. And I think it was watching I think it was like I accidentally watched a horror movie when I was about the same age. I think it was about like 6 or 7 when I saw it. I think it was Lake Placid for some reason. You know that crocodile movie?
No, I
Oh,
haven't
dude.
seen that.
If you watch it today, like, it's totally like fake. And it's kind of funny, really. But, to me, I was terrified of it.
Yeah,
There was something else. I forget. There was something I was like terrified of for days. But
man, mine was The Ring, where the girl climbs out of your
oh
TV.
man.
Oh
Yeah, I
my
never
gosh,
saw
dude,
that.
I flipped my TV around where it was facing the wrong way, like inside my entertainment center. I unplugged that thing. And then, like, when
What?
you're so scared of something, your
Yeah.
brain, like, plays tricks on you.
Yeah.
So I'd get, like, halfway asleep and I could hear the TV static come on. Yeah, no, it was terrible.
That's terrifying. Mine was mine wasn't Lake Placid, actually. I just now realized it was like a ghost movie. I think it was Ghostbusters.
Oh, no.
Surprisingly enough, it wasn't a horror movie. It was a comedy. It was Ghostbusters. You know that scene though where the two stone dogs come to life?
Yep.
That scene terrified the piss out of me. Pardon my language, but I just was so scared of dogs after that moment. Like, I did not want to be around dogs at all. And I, like, like you said, like at night in the dark, I could hear the dogs like howling and stuff. And I
Yeah,
just, oh man, terrified. Terrified.
that's funny.
Yeah. um but later things that did it to me were zombie games and movies. um I think the movie was called Strangers or something that I saw with my best friend in in Kentucky. Like he had this friend, like she was just super rich. She had her own like home theater and everything with like actual theater seats.
Yeah.
And so we went there. I think it was called Strangers. That movie terrified me. And the funny thing is, we basically lived that movie years later. Now, okay, we didn't live it, but he and I were cleaning out a Baptist church. Ironically enough, we were in a Baptist church and we were cleaning out because he still had like a janitor job there, and it was late at night, and nobody was there, but like we kept seeing people in the parking lot, and it got
Oh,
so bad that like we kept hearing things all throughout the church, not us cleaning, but like voices and other stuff, and it got so bad that as like at the when the bare minimum to call it clean was done, we said, all right, we're
you're
sprinting to the
heading
car.
out.
We're sprinting. And we did. We sprinted to the car. It was raining too. That helped, our pride. And so
Yeah.
we sprinted to the car. We got in, locked the doors, and we left. And we didn't say a word or breathe until we were, like 5 miles away.
Okay, so true horror story, just like what you just told.
Oh man.
Me
I love
and my
before we do this, I love how like our testimonies about our lives have turned into like let's talk about our favorite horror moments.
horror story. Um, so
Our
just so
life
y'all
is
know, I also suffer with ADD.
no,
Um,
no. It's just the natural like course the conversation is taken. It's just awesome. I love it. But continue.
so me and I was probably 14 or 15, and I was going hanging out with my older sister and her boyfriend at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we went and ate Mexican for dinner and left, and we were like, we don't really want to go home yet.
A lot of
Let's
horror movies
just,
start with Mexican food.
yeah. We were like, we don't really want to go home yet. Let's just go driving around. Well, there's a place in Montevallo where I lived at the time, and it was called Crybaby Bridge. And I'm gonna tell the story, and I've got chills already. But either way, the story behind it is there
You
was
reminded me of another
a
one. But yeah, go
there
ahead.
was a teenager who she got pregnant, and when she had the baby just cried all the time. And this is just the old like wives tale myth horror story type thing.
Okay. Gotcha.
But she got pregnant. Either way, she had the baby, and the baby just cried all the time. She couldn't take it anymore, and as the story goes, she ended up throwing the baby over this bridge in this creek.
Yikes.
Well, to this day, people claim that they go out there and they can hear a baby crying at the bridge. So the name of the bridge is Crybaby Bridge. It's an old wooden single lane like bridge that's closed down now because it's so old, and it's just a dirt road that goes to either way.
Mm-hmm.
We were driving very close to there. And we're just goofing off, listening to the radio, whatever, and we look in front of us as we're driving and we see a truck with the tailgate down. And all three of us at the same time are like, oh my gosh, there is a kid on the back of that truck with its feet dangling off the tailgate. Like, what are they doing? Speed up. And so, either way, Cody, my brother in law now, sped up.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time we got close enough to tell like what it was, it just completely disappeared and was gone. Like it was just a
Yikes.
truck driving with the tailgate down at that point. There was nothing on the back of it. Either way, all three of us saw it and swore that we saw it, and it was the same way. We got close and we were like, "Oh my gosh, it's gone!" And we didn't speak another word. We drove straight home after that.
I believe it. Slept with the lights on and everything. I would.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's terrifying stuff that happens like that. Um, it's interesting, but for anybody that's like us that struggles with stuff like this and is really like terrified of it, I highly recommend. I've talked about him before, but I highly recommend Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World. I'll have a link to his channel, to Jimmy Akin's YouTube channel, where you can actually start seeing some of the episodes. But he's really helped me to be able to process some of these scary things, like some of the really terrifying things, like you that have happened to people like you, seeing that kid in that truck. Um, he's been really, really super helpful, and it's because he just takes everything. He has this way of examining everything through the lenses of faith and reason. He uses both, and it's not always going to be it's not always going to be a hoax. Some of the things he talks about, it's not always going to be a weather balloon or a hoax, or some of the skeptical answers. There are some times where he said, I don't know what happened here, or I really think it was this that was happening here. And it's great to listen to if you're not, even if you're not Catholic, if you're not Christian, if you're atheist, whatever. It's a really cool podcast to listen to, and I think he's probably like the most unbiased content creator that I've ever seen. Like I don't see any bias other than, like, when he examines things through the lens of faith, it always has the Catholic lens on it, but that's it. I think I've told you about it though a
I
couple
think we
times.
have talked about that before.
Yeah, but yeah, I highly recommend it because it's really cool. And so anyway, when I was in Boy Scouts, it was actually Cub Scouts. I think I was a Weeblo. We lived in Texas at the time, and we lived close to the USS Kidd. And one of the camps that we went on was a weekend with the USS Kidd, because they used to do that with like the scouts and stuff. They used to have like special rates for scouts to come and spend the night on the ship. I don't know if they still do, but it was really, really cool. I was so excited because like I was super into anything military at the time. And so we went there, and it was just a lot of fun. But the first night that we were there, I was like 7 years old, like, or however old. I stupidly said, "Hey, Dad, let's go listen to the ghost stories that they tell." And yeah, this is the story. This is your story reminded me of how I first like got scared of ghosts and stuff. And it's this story, because
Oh no. Do I need to plug my ears for this one?
no, I'm not going to tell the story. I'm not going to tell it, but like, we go there, and it's like your run of the mill ghost story, but they did it like really well. They had sound effects and everything for like at all the perfect moments. And at the end of it, like it just scared me to my core. I should not have gone. Like it just terrified me to my core. And he said, the last thing he said, like, even today you can late at night still hear their cries and their wails of the two lovers. Maybe it's a true story, maybe it's not, but probably not. Anyway, I could swear like the whole time that I was there, like that, I could just swear that I could hear the wails and everything.
Yeah.
And I we went to go sleep in the bunks, and it was terrifying. And yeah, man, that's what started it for me. That was it. So
Yeah.
yeah, Crazy stuff.
It's funny how like the smallest thing could really just
Yeah.
torment you as a child.
Yeah, exactly. Like, looking back, like I don't think I'd be scared of those ghost stories that they were telling. Be like, oh, it's just nonsense. It's just,
Yeah.
them putting on a good show.
But back then,
Back then, as a kid who did not know and have the knowledge that I did, oh man, that was
yeah.
like the Bible. That was true.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was
Yeah.
it was terrifying to then have to spend the night there.
Yeah. I could see it.
Excuse me. I think it was my first sleepless night as a kid, as like a human being. So, yeah. Well, I think our ghost stories might wrap us up here.
Yeah, we've had quite a few of them there.
Yeah, we've had a few here. We're going on 2 hours now for the episode, so I think we're kind of at the end of our time. But you know, it was fun. It was a good
It
episode.
was.
Yeah.
I feel
So
like, we came into this wanting to let other people know who we are. I feel like I learned a lot about who we are as well.
yeah, I think so too. And apparently we're scaredy cats.
We are.
But we're also drawn to horror stories, so because you couldn't resist
Uh,
telling them and asking about them as much as I could.
uh, that's okay. Now we know when we do get together, if we ever go on vacation together or anything, we're just gonna sleep with the lights on, and we're both
Oh yeah,
terrified of
no.
everything.
So here's the thing. Here's what we're gonna do. I have decided. We're gonna have you come over, or we're gonna, whatever we do. But what we're gonna do the whole weekend is watch the Lord of the Rings the extended editions because it is just
Okay.
a sin that you have not seen them.
uh,
You have not.
but
Yeah.
but we also you have to watch Star Wars too.
Oh, that's fine with me. Why not just make a month vacation out of it?
Hey,
I'm only
I
kind
could
of
do
joking too.
it. Kind of.
Only kind of. Only a little
Uh,
bit. Like I'd be all right with spending, some extra time and doing a slumber party at my place and a slumber
Slumber
party at your
party.
place. Yeah.
When we come down to yours, we watch the Lord of the Rings, and then when y'all come down to ours, we could watch Star Wars.
No, we have to flip it.
Okay.
You have to be the most comfortable you can be. So that means it has to be at your house.
Okay, okay. I could see that.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, so thanks everybody for coming out. We had a lot of fun with this episode, and we hope y'all enjoy it too. Anybody who's squeamish, I'll try and put like a mark in or something to stop listening in the description, I guess. If you don't want to hear the ghost stories. But yeah, please be sure to hit that like and subscribe button if you like what you saw. Um, if you feel called to, we do have our Patreon link finally in the episodes, so feel free to go ahead and donate a little bit there. Right now we only have the one $5 tier. There will be more just as we get more followers and more content out and stuff like that. But just want to say thanks everybody for listening and hope you all have a good day.